TV Guide is. I like the inside scoops on all of my favorite TV people.
Oh, yeah, you really get into it. I can see that.
Do.
If you don't read TV Guide this week, you might be missing something.
Partly sunny tomorrow with high in the upper 40s. Good chance of rain tomorrow night and Thursday. We'll be back at 6. Now to CBS.
Good evening. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. President Reagan reportedly first testified to the Tower Commission that he did give advance approval for a secret shipment of weapons to Iran. Then he testified he didn't do that. Some of his top aides also have testified both ways. Today, Mr. Reagan virtually confirmed that he now has told investigators he just doesn't remember. Bill Plant has the latest.
President Reagan, asked about reports that he couldn't remember whether he approved Israeli arms shipments to Iran before or after the fact, seemed to suggest that indeed he had forgotten.
I'm not supposed to answer, but I'd like to ask one question of everybody. Everybody that can remember what they were doing on August 8th of 1985, raise your hand. I think it's possible to forget. Nobody's raised any hands.
Mr. Reagan changed his story on the arms sale in 2 different meetings with the Tower Commission. A senior administration official says the president just couldn't remember. But a House Democratic leader calls it part of the White House damage control effort.
When testimony is changed, when documents are changed, when positions are changed, you have to say that it's more than just a failure of memory.
Mr. Reagan's spokesman, asked if the president's memory is failing, retorted, "That's outrageous. I won't deal with it." And, says the Speaker of the House, detachment is no excuse.
The buck stops here. It doesn't make any difference whom the president appoints to help him do his job. That isn't the big question. The big question is the president himself and the assumption of responsibility by the president of the United States.
A top Republican added his voice to those saying Donald Reagan has a responsibility.
There's only one reason to serve as chief of staff, and that's to serve the President of the United States. And when you can no longer do that, then you should move on.
Reagan was asked at an office party this afternoon if he wanted to join the pool and when he was leaving. The chief of staff joked that if the stakes were high enough, he'd rig the pool. But to the First Lady and some of the president's friends, it's no laughing matter. They continue to press for Reagan's departure. The sooner, the better. Bill Plant, CBS News, the White House.
Fired White House aide Oliver North, key man in the secret arms and money dealings who's so far taken the Fifth and Stonewall, today tried to blunt efforts to get to the bottom of the deal and possible wrongdoing. Rita Braver reports North is now trying to legally stop the whole special prosecutor's independent investigation.
I don't know who to feel sorry for.
Former National Security Council aide, Marine Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North, today launched his first offensive strike against possible prosecution. He filed suit in federal court seeking to throw out the independent counsel's investigation of him. The claim that the Constitution says only the executive branch can prosecute offenses against the United States. Independent counsel Lawrence Walsh was appointed by a special 3-judge panel. Therefore, North claims his appointment violates the Constitution and the separation of powers.
It's kind of incredible that this man who theoretically was supposed to be a patriot and serve his country now files a lawsuit to challenge the constitutionality of a procedure to try to get at the facts.
The Watergate special prosecutor was in fact under Justice Department supervision, but Congress later changed the law to make the independent counsel truly independent. There has never been a serious court challenge to the law before. A former Watergate prosecutor says North's claim has merit.
The Constitution assigns certain functions to the president as head of the executive branch, and even Congress cannot take those functions away from him.
Walsh said in a statement, "The independent counsel statute has received extensive and careful study, and we are satisfied of its constitutionality. We shall, of course, oppose the action." But the suit could undermine Walsh's investigation, delaying prosecutions for years, and it will increase pressure on Congress to give North the immunity he so badly wants. Rita Braver, CBS News, Washington.
While Oliver North refuses to talk, his own secretary is now apparently telling the independent special prosecutor plenty, reportedly about destroying and doctoring national security documents before investigators could get to them. Eric Ingberg reports.
Fawn Hall, Oliver North's secretary, has become an instant star witness in a widening criminal investigation of a possible cover-up in the Iran scandal. by giving federal prosecutors an account of document destruction at the NSC. At her lawyer's office today, she would not talk about the case, only about her sudden celebrity.
It's a little overwhelming. One of my friends said Andy Warhol once said that everyone's famous for 15 minutes. I kind of feel like that right now.
Hall talked to investigators under a grant of immunity from criminal charges by the independent counsel looking into the Iran-Contra scandal. She has reportedly told investigators that at North's request, she altered 4 memos in the NSC files and ran a stack of papers through White House machines that turned paper to confetti. Hall, who is 27, worked on the NSC staff for 4 years before being shifted to the Pentagon after North was fired. Her father is a retired Army officer. Her mother was once the secretary to Robert McFarlane when he was North's boss at the NSC. Completing the circle, Hall recently dated Arturo Cruz Jr., whose father, a leader in the Contras, was getting paid by North's secret network. She also found time to work part-time as a model for a friend who runs an agency.
I've always been able to depend on her. I've always been able to depend on her honesty, her loyalty.
She's a different sort of cover girl now. Tabloid newspapers calling her the mystery woman, and news photographers straining for glamour shots.
It's a little nervous for me, but it's different. I don't think I've ever had so many cameras aimed at me.
Her next likely chance at the spotlight before the Congressional Investigating Committees. Can Hollywood be far behind? Eric Engberg, CBS News, Washington.
President Reagan has insisted that the many sophisticated arms sent to Iran could not have tipped the balance in the Persian Gulf War. But Pentagon correspondent David Morton now tells us that sensitive intelligence combined with the weapons may have done just that. Morton says Pentagon witnesses told the Tower Commission that as part of the deal, Iran got what was supposed to be secret data on Iraqi troop locations, which may indeed have helped the Iranians score battlefield victories. President Reagan today tried to follow the lead of the nation's governors in proposing a major overhaul of the nation's welfare system. Mr. Reagan proposed his own plan to Congress today. National Affairs correspondent Leslie Stahl looks at all the calls for welfare reform and what kind of reform is being called for.
Welfare reform is suddenly a hot political issue, and the politicians have put it on a fast track.
All in favor? Opposed? The new policy is adopted.
The nation's governors endorsed a welfare reform plan today. Congress is aiming for legislation by May. But most significantly, President Reagan has shifted his rhetoric from attacks on welfare queens who cheat the system to calls for genuine welfare reform. He sent his proposal to Congress today.
Our welfare reform package is our way of opening paths of opportunity.
After years of outright hostility, the political right and the left have found common ground.
The old welfare system was very, very unsatisfactory because it never broke the cycle of dependency. It just recreated it.
According to administration officials, a CBS News documentary by Bill Moyers convinced the White House that the political climate was ready for welfare reform. The documentary argued that the current welfare system is destroying the American family.
We were fascinated by the fact that here he was dramatizing something that we were finding, and it really wasn't politically right or left at all.
Congress and the governors emphasize mandatory work and education for most welfare recipients, and they want as much as $2 billion federal dollars for job training and child care. The president proposes to set up demonstration projects around the country.
I think we're beyond that. We now know how you help people to lift themselves out of welfare dependency. It's good child care, it's real training for real jobs.
But the White House doesn't want to spend any additional money. It's focusing on eliminating bureaucracy and waste in the welfare system. Nevertheless, Republicans think it's a good political issue. So much so that presidential aspirant Senator Bob Dole assigned himself a highly visible seat on the Senate Welfare Subcommittee. He believes the White House will compromise because it needs this issue.
Well, I think to a certain extent the White House needed an agenda. They were casting about with all the Iranian controversy and everybody dumping on the White House. It demonstrates that Ronald Reagan, who's quite conservative, is also very pragmatic.
I think there's a sense of, hey, we're about to be in real trouble if we don't get hold of this, that the society itself is at risk, and you better straighten out.
The welfare reform movement would not have gotten this far without President Reagan. But key members of Congress say that if he doesn't join in their consensus to spend more money, they can and will go forward without him. Leslie Stahl, CBS News, Washington.
The National Governors Association voted today to drop support for the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. The governors also called on Congress to stop withholding federal highway money from states that refuse to enforce the speed limit. Still to come on the CBS Evening News, should there be a premarital test for AIDS and one man's role in the great beauty and mystery called the Grand Canyon?
Introducing Medipren when your body hasn't got time for the pain.
Haven't got time for the pain. No, I haven't got time for the pain anymore.
Medipren has ibuprofen, the prescription ingredient recommended by doctors 2-to-1 over aspirin for body pain, including minor arthritis pain. And it's safer to your stomach than aspirin.
No, I haven't got time for the pain.
When your body hasn't got time for the pain, new Medipren from the makers of Tylenol products.
If you're looking for calcium in Just Right or Nutri-Grain, you can stop looking. There's none there. But Total has calcium, so now besides 100% of 9 vitamins and iron, Whole Wheat Total's the only major cereal that's a major source of calcium.
You are what you eat, so you better eat Lite. Wishbone Lite. It's light on oil, but with a full, fresh taste. Live the Wishbone Lite style with Wishbone Lite.
An issue few people want to think about was the topic today at the National Centers for Disease Control hearing in Atlanta, as CBS News medical correspondent Susan Spencer reports. It centered on the deadly disease already called the plague of the 80s.
4.8 million Americans got married last year, 31 million checked into hospitals, 3 million women had babies. The question that packed the House at the CDC hearings today, should doing any of this require a blood test for exposure to AIDS?
Too little information exists on a community basis about how many are infected and where the outbreak is headed.
There are many ways to find out about the level of infection in this country without mandating testing.
But CDC officials suggested wider testing could slow down the spread of AIDS from the estimated 1.5 million people believed infected, 85% of whom don't even know it.
I've asked that the test become as routine a practice of medicine as taking a pulse or a blood pressure or listening to the action of the heart.
The opposition argues that education, not testing, will slow AIDS, and that the risk of test results becoming public far outweighs any benefits.
Mandatory testing may indeed drive people away from the counseling and the support and the behavior modification that they need.
As evidence that confidentiality can't be guaranteed, opponents cite cases like that of Gary, who injured his head in a fall. He claims his insurance company won't pay up now because his doctor told the company he tested positive.
It's breached my privacy. To me, it had nothing to do with what was being examined for.
The notion of mandatory testing has raised such an outcry, it's felt the CDC is unlikely to recommend it. More likely would be a call for expanded voluntary testing, leaving it to the states to determine how to organize it, pay for it, and handle the results. Susan Spencer, CBS News, Atlanta.
Japan's cabinet recommended today that foreigners carrying the AIDS virus be kept out of their country. A government official says that could mean giving blood tests at the airport.
When you get a cold or an allergy,
you need some herbal tea.
You also get a lot of advice.
What you want to do is feed a cold.
A lot of advice.
Take 2 these and call me in the morning.
But the best advice is what doctors have said millions of times. Take Dimetapp. Dimetapp in non-prescription formulas brings proven relief. So take the advice of doctors and pharmacists.
The tea works, huh?
And take Dimetapp, the best advice you can take.
If you've been waiting for some really big news in 4x4s, your waiting's over. Mazda's got one fantastic new 4x4. And Mazda's loaded up SE5 is also priced close to other people's stripped down 4x4s. I'll tell you, it's the best handling 4x4 I've ever driven, and I've been driving 4x4s ever since well, never mind.
A bloody battle today in Muslim West Beirut. Syrian troops used axes and bayonets to kill more than 20 Shiite militiamen. 3 Druze fighters also were killed. The Syrians had moved in over the weekend, trying to break up a week-long battle between the rival Muslim factions. Rebels armed with grenades and automatic weapons killed 5 people in the Philippines today. The rebels were identified as being communists. That attack came on the eve of celebrations marking the first anniversary of the so-called People Power Revolution that ousted Ferdinand Marcos. If the revolution gave power to the Philippine people, David Jackson reports it has so far given them little else.
American folk singers came to remember the revolution and focused on the children. But the anniversary of People Power, like the revolution itself, is confined mostly to Manila. Elsewhere, in other hospitals, the children hear few songs and have nothing to celebrate. A year later, there is still too little food for the children on the island of Negros, where the poorest Filipinos struggle to survive. Parents can't afford to feed their children, and former President Marcos never admitted there was a problem. CBS News has learned that the Marcos government altered hospital records for years to hide the terrible disease and malnutrition on Negros.
In his own estimation, the Philippines under him is enjoying a wonderful time. Healthy people, happy people.
The Aquino government understands the situation and supports new feeding centers on Negros. But the centers aren't all they seem either. Local officials directed us to this one, where nutritious cereal had just been delivered for only the second day in 5 weeks. The occasion? Our visit. On other days, the children get the same as these children in the feeding center we found on our own. Only small bags of corn kernels. The Aquino government, born in such promise 1 year ago, is facing the crisis and trying to resolve it, but says it needs more time. On the impoverished island where even the basic health needs of the vast majority can't be met, time is something that too many children just don't have. David Jackson, CBS News, Negros, the Philippines.
There was spring-like weather in Chicago, but plenty of problems reported at the polls today in the Democratic primary for mayor. Incumbent Mayor Harold Washington claimed that in areas of his strongest support, thousands of voters had received the wrong ballots. Polling before today's primary indicated a comfortable lead for incumbent Washington over former Chicago Mayor Jane Byrne.
Tile 1, come in, Tower.
Turn back now. There's a chance of heavy showers.
Negative, Tower. I've got this delivery for Color Tile's big half-price sale.
Can't give you clearance to land.
No problem. Store's in sight. We'll drop in from here. Geronimo! Half-price paint and wall covering. Half-price mosaic tile. Half-price ceramic wall and floor tile. Drop in now. Color Tile's big half-price sale good through Sunday.
Even without this box, I'd know this is a delicious Sunsweet prune. Am I psychic? Observant. This pitted prune is clearly rounder and plumper. That makes it a Sunsweet prune. It also makes it delicious.
We asked 1,000 doctors if stranded on an island, which would they want? Tylenol, extra strength Tylenol, Advil, or Bayer? More doctors chose Bayer, nearly 2 to 1 over extra strength Tylenol. Bayer, the wonder drug that works wonders.
Space shuttle rocket booster maker Morton Thiokol today agreed to give up $10 million in profit from NASA and to provide over $400 million in other work for no profit. In agreeing to this, Morton Thiokol accepts no legal blame for the Challenger disaster and does not have to pay an outright fine for it. The future of a multi-billion-dollar nuclear power plant and the future of this nation's whole nuclear power industry are part of the latest controversy to come up today at a federal hearing, and something new has been added to the debate. Who gets to decide when an atomic power plant is safe to open? Ned Potter reports on nuclear power and power politics.
What does it take to get a nuclear plant approved? The Seabrook plant in New England, for instance, has been 15 years in the making. It's fueled and ready to go, but still waiting for the go-ahead.
The fact is we have a process in this country that just isn't working.
That argument from the plant's owner is getting a lot of attention in Washington because Seabrook and other plants have been stalled by local governors.
The area around Seabrook could not and cannot be evacuated in the event of a serious nuclear accident.
Today, a dozen governors and members of Congress came to protest a plan before the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, a plan that would set emergency evacuation procedures for the towns near a reactor even if states refused to take part. That would get several stalled plants going, like Shoreham in New York.
At best, we are tempting fate. At worst, we are risking the lives of the people of Long Island.
But Seabrook's opponents say the plan will likely pass anyhow.
Well, the NRC is very committed to licensing this plant. I think that the agency has demonstrated that time and time again.
Meanwhile, pro-nuclear TV commercials have started running in New England. What goes unsaid is that they were largely paid for by Seabrook's owners.
Seabrook is already built. It was built because we need it, and it's an investment we're going to pay for one way or another.
Pay is right. Seabrook is $3 billion over budget. But people who live near it still fear it.
If something happens up there, I don't think we have a chance.
The company says that given the go-ahead, it could power up that plant tomorrow. If only the atmosphere around here weren't so supercharged. Ned Potter, CBS News, Seabrook, New Hampshire.
A U.S. Supreme Court ruling today tried to balance the rights of defendants accused of rape and the rights of victims to privacy. The justices ruled that it's up to trial judges to review confidential files on rape victims and to decide when and if parts of those files may be used by the defense. On another case, the High Court gave police a victory today on a controversial search of a citizen's home. The justices said police could use as evidence a packet of drugs seized when police searched the wrong apartment by mistake. Also today, the Supreme Court ruled that a full-time gambler may deduct losses at tax time. A suspect in the bombings of 2 New York abortion clinics called officials of the Roman Catholic Church today and then gave himself up to police. Dennis Malvesi did so after an unusual broadcast appeal from Cardinal John O'Connor of New York. O'Connor had said the attacks on abortion clinics were a violation of church teaching. Malvesi is a former Marine explosives expert. He worked on the Statue of Liberty centennial fireworks display.
Peanuts! Get your fresh roasted peanuts!
Harry, wait for your sister! We must get some!
Remember getting Planters nuts fresh from the roaster?
Oh, the ones with Mr. Peanut.
Just one whiff and you couldn't resist them.
Oh, yes.
Well, today there's a snack that's just as irresistible. Planters Honey Roasted Nuts. They're sweet enough to please and just salty enough to tease. Planters Honey Roasted Nuts. Mr. Peanut does it again.
I'm not an actor. I'm just a guy, 30 years old, who had a heart attack. I'm okay now, but I want to tell you one thing I learned from my doctor. Medical studies prove that a diet low in fats and cholesterol with foods like Fleischmann's margarine can actually help reduce the level of cholesterol already in your body. And that's one way you can help reduce your risk of heart disease. I thought you'd like to know that. Take care.
Fleischmann's margarine. Ask your doctor.
Headache, pressure, and congestion all together. Major symptoms of sinus complex. You need to feel better, but not drowsy. You need Dimetapp 2 no drowsiness formula, so you feel altogether better.
You've just had your dentures professionally cleaned
How can I keep them looking this way?
with professional strength Effordent. Effordent removes stains, kills germs, cleans away plaque, even in between. For a professional looking clean, get Effordent.
The Grand Canyon is a wonder of the whole wide world. It is 277 miles long, a mile deep, 18 miles wide, and literally exploding, with 275 bird species, 120 other kinds of animals. Measured against that grandeur, can one man make a difference? Yup, he can mean plenty if he's the man CBS News correspondent Bob McNamara followed around.
Another Grand Canyon sunrise.
And once more, the spectacular show of light and shadows, distances and depths. And often now, deep in the canyon's winter quiet, you hear him on the trail. That's Marvin Hanchett on the harmonica and the mule, looking for trouble.
I like the ruggedness of the canyon. It's a challenge. I like the idea of doing it the old way.
Not a lawman, not a park ranger. Marvin Hanchett is the cowboy telephone lineman of the Grand Canyon. And the 600 poles, the 18 miles of wire he works, is the Trans-Canyon telephone line, the only phone line on the National Register of Historic Places.
I get a big rush out of it. I like it. But you have to be careful. You have to know what you're doing. And you can't make mistakes. You only get one chance to fall.
Strung through some of America's most rugged country, climbing cliffs hundreds of feet high, it winds along Bright Angel Canyon.
All right, well, this one's working. Bye.
And 11 emergency phones are sometimes lifelines to the hundreds of hikers who enter the canyon with more enthusiasm than endurance and have to be helicoptered out.
Most people hike the canyon and never talk about the phone line because they really never notice it. They just notice it when they need it.
Clearing away rock slides.
Come on, Danny, hack! Come on, step!
The job's as much a mule's work as it is a man's. Repairing or putting up new phone poles to hold the line. Where ladders won't travel, there's Danny the Mule to steady a paint job. And in the few places mules won't do, then helper Kevin Miller's hard hat sometimes does. Boots, spurs, chaps. Marvin Hanchett likes it the way they had it in 1935 when they built the canyon phone line.
It was really difficult, really difficult. They worked in rain and snow and cold and wind, every condition you can think of.
And yet, like anybody who's ever worked or explored here, Marvin Hanchett knows his place in the canyon.
It's just magnificent. It's always been here. After we're gone, it'll still be here. It makes me feel very unimportant, as large as it is, and I kind of like that.
But all Marvin Hanchett ever wanted to be was a cowboy. And for him, a job on the canyon telephone line is the next best thing to being there. Bob McNamara, CBS News, the Grand Canyon.
And with thoughts of the Grand Canyon lineman, that's the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather, thank you for joining us. Good night.
Women lead such hectic lives managing a career
You're all set for Hawaii.
and a family. There's no time for irregularity.
Let's go for a ride, Mom.
Maybe later.
Okay.
Yet women suffer from constipation 3 times more often than men. That's why there's Correctol. Its special formula with calcium added combines a mild laxative with a softening agent. It works gently overnight to help you feel like yourself again.
Let's go another mile.
Correctol, the gentle laxative so many women prefer.
I just got dentures, but with Fixident, I don't get the dentures come a loose blues.
Fixident and forget it.
Denture wearers can't eat everything, but with Fixident, I can feast more than just my eyes.
Fixident and forget it. Fixident helps fix loose spots for a strong hold that lasts longer than any leading cream.
A woman in my position can't worry about hold.
Use Fixident and forget it.
The 87 Yugos are here, and people love them.
I think it's fun to drive.
I like the rack and pinion steering.
We wanted a dependable second car. It's easy to love America's most affordable new car, the $39.90 Yugo GB. And now there's even more value during Yugo's Pack for Action sale. You can get sport wheel covers, a right side mirror, roof rack.
Great.
And a 3-year, 50,000-mile extended service plan.
Wow.
All at terrific savings.
I'll take it.
Hurry, this offer won't last long. See your participating Yugo dealer today.
This is CBS.
The TV8 News, live at 6, next.
When the cold wind blows and it starts to snow, a tough new Ford is the way to go. They're fun to drive, and they work hard, too, plus there's great Ford deals just for you.
Now get low 3.9 financing or $500 cash back on a sporty Ford Ranger, 3.9 or $600 cash back on Bronco 2, or 3.9 and up to $600 cash back on F-150. Come in now for a tough truck that's more than just a place to lean.
Because your Ford dealer knows that it's time to show that you're the boss, not the snow.
Hurry, 3.9 ends soon. See your local Ford dealer today.